Thanks for staying with us on What Now. Let's turn attention to the United States, where Zohran Mamdani has won New York City's mayoral race as Democrats sweep the first major elections of Donald Trump's second term in office. The 34-year-old becomes the first Muslim mayor and the youngest person in over a century to lead the largest city in the U.S., defeating independent Andrew Cuomo. In his victory speech, Mr. Mamdani said, quote, "In this moment of political darkness, New York will be the light," end quote. President Trump had threatened to cut New York City's federal funding if Andrew Cuomo loses election to Zohran Mamdani. All eyes are now on him to see what his action will be now that his preferred candidate is not the winner. And for a look into the just concluded controversial election in New York City, the founder constituency for Africa, Melvin Foot, who is also, interestingly, a Democrat, joins us from Washington, D.C. Good to join us. Good to have you join us, rather.
Great to be here.
So we're going to look generally, not just the New York election, but generally at the elections just held, where Democrats took all of the seats. I just want to ask if this context sort of offer a barometer of how Americans are responding to President Trump's 9 months in office.
Well, I think so. President Trump said he was not on the ballot last night, but he was on the ballot very much. He was all over the ballot. And I think the American people are now starting to wake up. The Democrats were already there. It was clear that they were going to go hard against him. But I think a lot of Republicans also are finding out now that their economics are not what Trump said it was going to be. He said we're going to stay out of war. And every time we turn around, we're talking about going to war with somebody. We're talking about going to war with Nigeria right now. And I think a lot of Americans are saying, whoa, this is not what we signed up for. And I think it's a bad sign for the Republican Party, certainly going into the midterm elections. And I think the Democrats are very much buoyed by what happened last night.
And we'll get to the midterms in just a moment, but I also wanted to just ask you, many Democrats have been clamoring for a fresh face at the vanguard of the party. And we see the party now elevating a new generation of leaders. Did this sort of contribute to this victory? And what does this mean for how Democrats organize going forward?
Well, I think it's not just here in the United States. I think around the world, across Africa, the Z generation, these young kids are growing up now. They are becoming the majority. And I think that they want a different world than what they inherited. They want jobs. They want environmental concerns addressed. They want health care. They want educational opportunities. So what's happening in the United States now is reflected about what's going on in the world. And I think that young people are saying, no, this is not the world that we want to live in. And they're going to demand changes.
And for Republicans, does this election sort of serve as a test of whether voters who powered Trump's victory in 2024 will still show up when he's not on the ballot?
Well, the reality is that Trump took over the Republican Party. It's not so much the Republicans voted for him. He took over with his MAGA movement. And sure enough, a lot of Republicans who make sense were pushed out of the Republican Party. And so now you're looking up and say, whoa, who's running this Republican Party? Who are these MAGA people? And I think that Trump's base is now dissatisfied with what they're hearing from Trump. And so the question remains, what's going to happen going into the midterm election? And what is going to happen 3 years from now when Americans vote again for his presidency? So I think that the American political system has been shaken. And now what we're seeing now is the fallout from that. And we'll see where we go going forward.
Let's focus on New York for just a moment. Mamdani has been a force to reckon with even during his campaign, and it's not so much of a surprise that he won. And many think that he's likely to now become one of the most visible Democratic figures. But for some reason, he's progressive, and that's in the mold of Senator Bernie Sanders and then Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. I'm just wondering if the Democratic Party is ready to accommodate that brand of politics. It wasn't welcoming to Bernie Sanders.
That's a very good question. And I don't know is the answer. I think that Mamdani has shocked even the Democrats. The traditional Democrats are also shocked. Some of the things that he's talking about, he's against U.S. Support for Israel in Gaza. He's saying it should be much more balanced. Well, a lot of Americans are feeling the same way, but I think a lot of them also think that Israel is a permanent partner with the United States, and they're not so comfortable with Mamdani's perspective. So I think there's going to be a lot of discussion within the Democrats going forward also. I think the taxes, I think on health care and a number of other issues, the Democrats are going to have to come to reckon with in terms of where we go in terms of the party. So it's not just about Republicans here. I think the Democrats also were shaken somewhat by this election.
And we understand that Wall Street is also very concerned about having someone who has socialist ideology being the head of one of the biggest or largest cities in the U.S. But I also wanted to talk about President Trump's statement, talking about cutting funding to New York. How do you think he has said that that move has just begun? He posted on Twitter after Mamdani's win. How do you expect that to play out? Will he really cut funding, and what will that mean?
Well, you're asking really good questions. I don't know. I don't think you can do that. I don't think you can really attack Wall Street. I don't think you really can attack New York City and other major cities in the United States. Trump is talking, a lot of Trump's discussion of bluster. He is throwing out things and look at me, I'm going to do it, and I'm the one who did it, and all this kind of thing. But the reality is people got to live. And I'm not so sure that a lot of Trump bluster is going to hold going forward. I think you're going to see a lot more people wake up now, get more involved in the political process, and it may, in fact, hurt Trump going into the next election.
You talked about the midterm elections, and I said we'll get to that in just a moment. The Democratic messaging honestly remains broadly unpopular. Democrats have not really been good with messaging, as the Republicans are. But on the Republican side, Trump's own approval rating has declined. And I'm just want to ask you who has the greater momentum ahead of the midterm elections next year?
I think the Democrats are now, American elections are very much based on momentum. And I think the Democrats got a great deal of momentum last night. I think you're going to see them much more aggressive, much more assertive. The shutting down of the U.S. government, the Republicans are being blamed for the most part for that happening and for keeping it shut down. This is Trump. He's going to meet with the Republican governors today and going to tell them to hold the line. Let's don't open our government, until the Democrats capitulate on health care and some other issues. So I think that the messaging, you're correct about that. The Democrats are not good on messaging, but I think going forward with the momentum that they got last night, we'll see a much more assertive, much more aggressive Democratic Party going forward as we move forward.
And with this current momentum, is there still a role or a place for the major faces, that I would call them maybe just the elite club in the Democratic Party, the Obamas, the Bidens, Nancy Pelosi? Is there still a role for them in the Democratic Party?
I think the old people, and we're talking about the 80s and old, arise going forward among the Democrats. And I think even among the Republicans, you're going to start seeing, wait a minute, this is not necessarily about Democrat versus Republican. It's the old guard who's holding on to the money, who don't want to allow for other people to come in. It's going to be an interesting question among immigrants. I think last night the Republicans who have been banking on Latinos and others who were disaffected with Democrats were going to vote for Republican, and they didn't show up last night. They were not there. So it's also a big question going forward about the immigration battle. Now, they've seen what happened when they did vote for Trump. Next thing you know, he's kicking immigrants out of the country illegally. He's doing all kinds of things to hurt the people who voted for him. I think Trump just assumed he had them, and it didn't matter what he did to them. In fact, if he punished him, his base would applaud that. I think there's going to have to be some recalculation among the Republicans also about their messaging going forward.
And who are the Democrats looking up to provide leadership at this time?
It's going to be interesting to say. I think Chuck Schumer certainly, is going to still be a factor, and Hakeem Jeffries certainly is going to still be there. But I think there's going to be new faces, perhaps emerge more, that would be more acceptable to this base that's rising up among the Democrats. I'm expecting some new faces to emerge. I can't tell you who those are going to be right now, but let's wait and see what the next few months bring.
And just before we let you go, there was a gaffe by President Trump as he labeled wrongly Mamdani as a communist and instead of a progressive or a socialist. I just want to get your reaction to that because that is generating some sort of buzz.
Well, again, I think Trump is a master at calling names. He's a master at blustering. He's certainly doing all that. I'm not so sure people are listening to him. I think people become tone deaf. They're hearing his mouth move, but they're not hearing what he's saying. And I think calling names is not going to be something that people are going to be listening to going forward. I think he might have played his best hand already. And, he's 79 years old. People are looking at that also. It seems to me that healthcare is becoming an issue for him also. So I just think that the next, the rest of this year is going to be very interesting going into the midterm election.
Always a pleasure to have you on Melvin Food. Thank you so much for talking to us.
Thank you.